Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 155 of Be With Me. Yesterday, we did a podcast and learned about all kinds of sailing terms, and we concluded with the one that under the lee of, they were sailing under the lee of the island, that is the side against the least windy side of an island. And the drama continues today. We thought it was over yesterday, where there was extremists of the drama, and they vote with the majority, and they say, okay, I think we can make it to this harbor, the Phoenix harbor in Crete. And then here's what happened. So this is Acts chapter 27, verse 13. Now when the south wind blew gently, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, so they thought they had made it, they weighed anchor, big mistake, and sailed along Crete, close to the shore. They're in the Mediterranean Sea, which is, for all intents and purposes, a big ocean. And then verse 14, but soon a tempestuous wind called the northeaster struck down from the land. And when the ship was caught and could not face the wind, we gave way to it and were driven along. So the first thing about this is we find out that this storm is a tempestuous storm. It has a name. The name is the northeaster, so they all kind of knew the name. They knew what it was. They knew where it came from the northeast area, presumably, and then how it comes that it struck down from the land. So this was a familiar and dreaded event that happened, and even kind of the nastiness. They say the ship was caught in it in verse 15. All right, verse 16, running under the lee of a small island called Cauda, we managed with difficulty to secure the ship's boat. So there's still, just a little bit of control here. From here on out, it's just mayhem. Verse 17, after hoisting it up, they used supports to undergird the ship. Then, fearing that they would run aground on the Syrtis, they lowered the gear, and thus they were driven along. Since we were violently storm-tossed, they began the next day, day 2, to jettison the cargo. And on the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest lay up on us, all hope of our being saved was at last abandoned. All right, so in these few short verses, we find that they had just a little bit of control, but the first thing they lose is their direction, and they turn from against the wind to running with the wind. Then they lose control of the ship. Then they lose the cargo, and they do this voluntarily, thinking they may trade cargo for their lives. Somewhere along the lines, the first thing they lose is they lose eating. They stop eating. The fifth thing is they lose the ship's tackle, and they do this voluntarily as well. And then finally, the last thing they lose is they lose hope. All right, so let me just finish the story then. So that's all hope of their being saved was at last abandoned. Verse 21, since they had been without food for a long time, Paul stood up among them and said, men, you should have listened to me and not have set sail from Crete and incurred this injury and loss. Yet now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For this very night there stood before me an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I worship. So I'm going to stop there because this just really touched me today. You'd think that if an angel came to visit you, it would be the highlight of the story. But what struck me about the story wasn't that an angel came to visit and what the angel said even, but it is that he had a God to whom he belonged, and he's the big cheese. He's the one that sent the angel. The amazing thing for me in this story today is that I belong to God. That is, there's a ownership, a family bond, a stewardship, a care, and he says he worships. And once you get the fact that I belong to God, then the kind of God we have, who has angels at his employ, that's actually kind of like an easy part of this. So here's where I'm going with this, is I think metaphorically, don't we all have sailing peril as we sail through life? And don't we all sail in tempestuous waters, at least at times? And don't we have times where we lose control, and we lose stuff, and we lose things that we think are important, and eventually even we lose hope, maybe physical hope or relational hope or emotional hope or maybe spiritual hope. And it's at these moments that we could be surprised by an angel, and I don't mean any disrespect for Mr. Angel, but the angel isn't anything in this story compared to the fact that Paul and the guys who are going to get saved in his coattails here, literally saved, not spiritually saved, maybe that too, because Paul has a God that invites him into his family, that's a God to whom he belongs, then the rest of the story is kind of believable. Then, well, what kind of a God is it? It's a God who's got, hosts upon hosts of angels at his disposal, and he just decides to send one to give Paul a message that he is going to make it all the way to Rome, and that the Lord is going to give him all these people that are with him. So today, if you are in sailing peril and you are in a place where you have lost hope, take courage in this. Take heart, is what Paul said. Take heart for this reason, that you belong to God, just like Paul did. And maybe he'll send you an angel too. Thank you for listening.